All right. I'm Joe Upton. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Gasch Printing. We're an all-digital full-service book printer in Maryland. Full service means all bind styles, 1 and 4 color text. All digital means inkjet and toner equipment for text and covers. I've been in the industry for about going on 40 years, most of that in manufacturing. And I'm also on the board of the BMI. And lastly, I'm just very appreciative that to be able to gather with all of you here today. It's nice just to be in person. It feels kind of funny saying that a few years after supposedly the pandemic is behind us, but these gatherings are still too infrequent. So I'd like to introduce our panel. Tim Jones from Harvard University Press, recently of Harvard University Press. He is retired. Congratulations, Tim. Sherin Pierce from the Old Farmer's Almanac, and Karen Pavlicin from Elva Resa Publishing. And just if you could introduce yourselves, and we have a little show and tell to benefit the audience.
Hello. I'm Tim Jones, formerly of Harvard University Press. I've been in book design and manufacturing for 30 years. I didn't bring show and tell. I didn't think of that, but that's because I'm former. So it's exciting to be here and talk to you all. And so now, despite my purple tag, I really can't give you business, but I might ask you for a job. So anyway, it's great to be here.
My name is Sherin Pierce. I'm the publisher of the Old Farmer's Almanac. I've been at Yankee Publishing since 1987. I came to work when I was 12 years old at the Old Farmer's Almanac, door-to-door sales, just kidding. It's a great publication to work for, and I'm sure you're all surprised, like, what is the Almanac doing in book publishing? All will be revealed. Our world headquarters is in Dublin, New Hampshire. Population 2,200 on a good day. So more to come as we go through this presentation.
I'm Karen Pavlicin, and I'm the founder and publisher of Elva Resa Publishing. We're coming up on 28 years in business, and we're located in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. We have an editorial office and showroom just east of St. Paul, a bookstore alcove downtown Minneapolis, and a commercial warehouse in North Minneapolis. And we do everything from children's books, middle grade, adult nonfiction, activity books, coloring books, books about all different aspects of military life. And we also have our own distribution part of our company and distribute books for other publishers primarily to the military, education, healthcare markets. We work a lot with nonprofits that order case bulk lots, and mainly for events where they give the books to military families. And I'll talk more about that later.
Thank you. So quick question. This is a pop quiz for the three of you. Front list, back list. How many, just to kind of level set for the audience, what are your front list numbers and your back list numbers on an annual basis?
In terms of printing? Printing?
Yeah.
So we have dated products. The Almanac is obviously a dated product. And in the hardcover and trade paperback, we print 300,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And we have the Almanac for Kids, which is 215,000. We have a series of gardening books as well. The largest gardening book, the Vegetable Gardener's Handbook, is 290,000 copies. Mm-hmm. All the undated products become backlist titles, obviously. The dated products, always frontlist titles. We have planners, we have book products as well. Mm-hmm. And even though we have a footprint in the newsstand magazine market of 2 million copies, our book business has really started expanding and growing during these times. So since 1792, we were always manufactured by book publishers back in Boston. And now here we are, newsstand and book publishing. So it's really a mix.
The number of front list titles you have is?
The Almanac for Kids, 3 Veggie Gardener's Handbooks. I would say about 8 front list titles, yeah.
And Karen, how about you?
It depends on the year. Our bestsellers actually are 15 years old. So when people talk about front lists, oftentimes for us, it's a new edition of a best-selling backlist. So we do in terms of brand new books, anywhere from 4 to 12 in a year. We try not to do more than a dozen new books because we are doing so many reprints, new editions. So far this year, we've done 14 print runs, and we have 6 more to go. We have worked with 6 different printers so far, and we have 3 others that we're working with. So we try to spread the love. And we also do custom editions because we work with organizations. So we don't really consider those front list new releases. But I would say fewer than a dozen for trade new releases each year.
Tim?
We've gone through Harvard in the last, I'd say, nearly decades, changed in its numbers. So we were once in the 170 new titles a year. It's now closer to 100 new titles per year. The backlist is very strong and diverse, from one-off POD printing through things that print tens of thousands per run. And it's generally hovered which you'll understand, our budget hovered in the $3 million for both on a yearly basis, regardless sort of the number of front list titles. So, which indicates a lot of the changes everyone's seeing and talking about.
Great. Thank you. So for the next half hour or so, we're going to really kind of touch on 3 questions in a general way. Looking back to 2019, to the before times, what has changed in the industry from a publisher's perspective? What hasn't changed? And then what needs to change? Touching on some of the things that Marco and Jim talked about, some of the challenges that the industry is facing, and what as a group can we do to make that better? So the first question for the panel is, and Marco touched on it, we can't talk about pricing, where there's a little antitrust issue there, but we can talk, there's no secret, costs have gone up. Marco articulated that. The cost to manufacture a book has gone up, and it's felt all the way down through to the consumer. Specifically, how has that affected your businesses and how you go about how your businesses operate?
I mean, it affects everything. And one of the things I'd push back on from earlier is there is a limit to how much publishers can raise prices. And I don't speak obviously for the trade, and I don't obviously speak for, the big giant runs, but we definitely found that for our book, scholarly nonfiction, there's limits. And so it was very hard to walk that line. And I think what I've felt, and it's sort of an unusual perspective because I've had a few months to look backwards on the goings on of my career for the last, say, 10 years. It's constantly, you all know this, it's constantly this search for what's the next thing I can fix. And you can call it efficiency, you can call it, whatever you want to, but everyone's trying to find the piece. And I think where we find, and we working with our partners, when it really is a partnership is when it's best, because they can tell us what part we could find, what thing I could change. And what I'm seeing now, and I've seen it for the last several years, is that, and again, this speaks, I think, more to the mid-size like Harvard is, the big push is towards the efficiency in warehousing and in all of the efficiencies there. And I think the friction is coming from CFOs versus production managers versus editorial, perhaps, of you're trying to, and I've seen this in a lot of aspects, you're trying to apply the same principle to every publisher and it can't work. So what you need to do for the publishers, and what publishers, you need to teach us this, is what can work. How can we adapt it? Because the adaptability for the middle, and I assume that the middle publishers are sort of the bread and butter, how you work out how to fix those things, because right now the newest thing is 90-day inventory. Well, that's lovely if you're printing bestsellers. We were printing 1,000 books, and that's not 90 days. It's some cases that's 9 years. That doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. Yeah, but there is some sort of balance that can be found on an individual basis. And right now, I fear that we're in a place where it's no, we're going to apply this one model and run with it. And that, again, you're looking at short-term versus long-term. And I think that publishing will be around. I think some books will be luxury items, but I think some won't. It's a great technology. You can make a disposable version, you can make a forever version. And, it's just a matter of finding where each person has a foot in the game.
Sherin?
For us, the Old Farmer's Almanac was first published in 1792. So that's 233 years of continuous publication. It's the oldest continuously published periodical in North America. Say that 5 times. Anyway, so it's a huge legacy that we have, and it's a product that is sold all across the US and the Canadian version as well. But we're just going to focus on the US right now. So every part of this US feels an incredible loyalty. It's been a part of the fabric of this country for the last 233 years. So we feel a huge obligation to our readers. Having dated products means you need your readers to come back and purchase your products year after year after year. It's not something we take lightly. It's a legacy that we are protecting for the time we work there. So for me, for the last 37 years, and there'll be publishers after me. There were 22 publishers before me in this lifetime of this product, which is to say, there are so many people across this country who really have a great affection and love for the product, but they also don't have deep pocketbooks. And even though it's an annual and we sell 4 different kinds of versions of the almanac, the newsstand version, the trade paperback, and the hardcover edition, which is the collectible edition, it has to be affordable to our year in and year out customers. We have to maintain the quality and the value because that's what the expectation is. And we respect that this is what our readers come back to us year after year, this general publication that has become such an icon and part of publishing in the US. The more vertical interest publications like our gardening titles and the Almanac for Kids and our planners, we're able to raise the prices of those above those of the Almanac. But with the Almanac, we're very careful, and during times of tribulation, as we've all experienced, this is not our first round at the rodeo, as you can imagine. Since 1792, we've had a few, challenges, wars, peace, the whole thing. We've always kept the quality consistent, the number of pages consistent, and as much as we can, pushing back at our printers, the quality of the paper as well. It's really something that's become a hallmark of Almanac publishing. We respect our readers. We respect what the paper and the printers have to go through to produce this product. We're a small company. Without our partners, our vendor partners, we could never have the reach that we do. And of course, the distribution of HarperCollins now, our book distributors. So going back to, what we have to do, maintain quality, increase. Our readers have really, really rallied around us during times of trouble, and they've rallied and kept buying their almanac. They're one true thing that they need to get them through whatever they're facing in their lives, because really the almanac is an open tent for everyone. So that's what we've been able to do. We want to do, and we have to set up for the next generation of almanac readers.
So we have raised our prices, but we do, like a lot of people, have a cap. 25% of military families are food insecure, so we don't want them spending money on books. So while we do some POD primarily on our trade books in bookstores that are going to be single copies, we still have a need for quality offset. Our organizations are buying 8 to 10 cases of books at a time, hundreds. Their average order is about $5,000, and then they're giving them to the families. And that's what we want them to do from an accessibility perspective and inclusivity perspective. So we can't raise them too much. And our offsets, in terms of how it's impacted us, we have reduced our print runs. We used to run about 4,000 to 5,000 copies per book, and now we run about 1,500 per book. And part of that is just a cash flow management strategy. So we only have so much cash that we can put into a project. So as the price goes up, we have to print fewer. And even though the unit cost is going to be higher, the total cost in is, what we can afford. So that's one way that has impacted us. We also no longer print jackets for our hardcovers. They're all printed case. We don't print ARCs usually. They're all digital now. So we've had other ways that we've tried to absorb the cost increase in our budgets.
Just curious, what percentage roughly are your books sold in bookstores?
Fewer than 25%. About 3/4 of our business is the bulk sales.
And Karen's former president of the BPA board. So I asked this question from your colleagues on the IBPA. Is that a similar number, 25%?
No, I would say not. Ours is a little bit different business model. Many of my colleagues rely on the trade for their sales, rely on traditional distribution. We have actually our own distribution part of our company. Because of the uniqueness of who we sell to, many publishers consider that a special market. Education, healthcare, military. Oftentimes you find that's a special sales. That's the core of our business. And so that is actually how we got into distribution as well. We had many of our customers were looking for resources that were from other publishers. A few other publishers do publish books for military families. So they were also looking for a better way to reach our customers. So it's basically a matchmaking service as part of our distribution. So I would say that we're somewhat unique in that. And I'd also say that, so our Minneapolis warehouse is a commercial warehouse. They don't break open a carton. So that's also unusual for us. So when we say to you, we need sturdy cartons and we don't want paperwork in the cartons and they need to be able to be reshipped, that's because our warehouse does not open the carton. They only ship case, pallet, and truck. So anything that we have to break open, we have to bring to our editorial office. So
I'd like to come back to distribution in a minute, but before I do, just completing some things that you said, Karen. So are your publishing houses doing more POD, less POD? Whatever that answer is, what drives that direction?
We're doing more POD, but not because we want to. Some of it has been driven by changes in the industry. Ingram, for example, Ingram has new thresholds for how much you sell into retail for them to carry inventory. Otherwise, it needs to be in their POD section. So again, some of our trade titles that are 6x9, black and white, fairly easy to do, POD, we do. But actually, our best-selling products cannot be done in their POD program. So, that's really what drives it. We still have, our best-selling products have Wire O. We're coming out with our 3rd edition of this, our 4th edition of the adult version. They're deployment journals when families deploy. Our adult version is sewn with a ribbon. So it doesn't make any sense to do those kind of things POD, but it has increased simply because of the pressures on us from how the distribution is changing and our partners' requirements.
Sherin?
Here we go. For the Oak Farmer's Almanac, the biggest seller in the bookstore market is obviously Amazon. They can sell anywhere between 125 to 150,000 copies a year. Next is Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, and of course, all the various independent bookstores as well. I mean, we want to make sure that the Almanac is available wherever a book or magazine can be sold. That includes DIY places as well, Ace and Tractor Supply. But what we've seen, what we try to do also with our products is we don't depend on just 1 or 2 channels of distribution. We have a very robust subscription program, and that's with the hardcover and our gardening calendar. And that's about 73,000. It's growing every year. And we sell all our books on almanac.com, which is our e-com store, which we started back in 1996 when we first started our website, almanac.com. That almanac.com is what we test print-on-demand titles. So this year, for instance, people have said to us, we can't read the calendar pages and the writing's so small, blah, blah, blah. So we thought, let's have an easy-to-read edition. So we're testing a easy to read edition. It looks like an SAT book. It's that huge, to see if the concept has legs and to see whether we should bring it to print in the following years. So if you want to experiment with something, if there's a concept you're interested in, you're trying to see how your readers react to it, print on demand is helpful. But as you know, we are in ink and paper since 1792. So that's our home.
So,
Yeah.
Tim, interested in your answer on that, but add in something that Karen touched about is run lengths have come down because for cash flow reasons. So kind of run lengths, quantities, titles in print, all
POD, run lengths,
Yeah.
quality. What else was it? What?
a quantity.
Oh, quantity.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. No one cares about quality.
No.
I did. Okay. So yes, certainly. I mean, the course of my career at Harvard has been this debate of where's the line for POD. That's particularly on our backlist. And again, because it's such a deep backlist, we were some years the line was at 50, and some years the line is at 250. And that gets into this sort of same question of how are you looking at your numbers? Because again, I was looking at it from I spent X and I'm making Y, and therefore we won. And there's so many other ways, as we all know, to look at that of what the costs are for storing it, what the costs are for each piece. So, and then on top of that, you've had the changes in the market. So we definitely, like everyone else during the pandemic and during the supply crisis, printed crazy amounts. And then now it's changed back and relying on POD to pick up some of the slack. I think, like most production people, you hate that part, and you hope it lasts really short and you're back on making your own books. But that balance is ever changing, and I think that you're going to definitely need more of it. And the question, I think, for publishers is how much of it can you control versus how much is in Ingram's hands or Amazon's hands, and what does that mean, whether that's for quality or for your prices, on both ends of that.
Okay. Touching on the standardization. So that came up earlier, whether it's trim size, the papers offerings you have, cover treatments. Are you seeing a move in one direction or another? Because in a lot of publishing houses, the folks that are buying the printing are okay with standardization, but there are others in the organization that are not. Has that changed?
Well, first of all, we like it when our printers tell us, hey, if you were to change this by 1/4 of an inch, it would work out better for you pricing wise. We like that collaboration to help us with standardizing something. I would say that for a lot of our books, like we do a lot of activity books, coloring books, things like that. And as long as the paper, can be colored on and not bleed through, we're okay changing paper weight or trim size, things like that. And we try to keep that kind of stuff really standard. But we do work really closely with our customers who are partners in a different way in our community. And sometimes they have a different need. It has to fit in a pouch with other things that are going overseas, and so we can't always standardize everything. And we do still have a need for one color that's not at 4-color pricing, for different bindings, things like that can't be standardized. So for us, it's not always about trade and printing standards. It's also what our customers need, which isn't always, unfortunately, what's most economical on a press.
So in terms of standardization, we do talk to our printer Lakeside since 1991, and a great partner to have. And we always run things through our sales reps to ask us, are there any economies of scale or size that we can do? There's certain expectations, for a hardcover, book with the dust jacket, should we still do the embossing or not? And, it's a collector's edition. So, there's certain things we still have to maintain. There's certain sizes that we can't go over because we have a ton of floor displays that we do. We do tens of thousands of floor displays to retail. So if we change the products too much, that means new tool and dies for those displays. And so there's certain parameters we work within, but we're always willing to know, take an eighth of an inch, 16th, whatever, what the difference is. We rely on vendors and our printers. And as one of my production directors said, hey, we can do anything. You have the money, we can do it. It's like production jokes, I'm like, okay, move on. Let's see what we can do. But, every product is unique. And so it brings with what the customer's looking for, what the printer can do, and what we can afford to do, because there is a cost beyond which we won't be selling any copies, and then the printer won't have any business. So that's the balance we need to do. But we're always willing to talk about, we talk about different cover weights, the cover treatments, varnish, matte, coat, every single thing every year. These particular gardening books have flex covers because gardeners are very active, tactile people, and you don't want something that is not giving. You want something that people can use, because that's the whole point of having gardening books. So it's not just a coffee table publication; it's for people who use it. So all these things, we try to bring all the different needs together, talk to production, and make the final decisions. And that's what happens every year.
And I mean, yes, everything has, again, looking back, having worked both sides of design and production, I look back at some of the things I did in the beginning at Harvard, and I got to use all sorts of insane trim sizes. And other things that I was just doing that were nuts, that as production director, I would have never said, okay. But it was a different time. And, but even then, our printing partners would tell you when you were going too far. So, a name a lot of Gino Walsh, was constantly telling me, no, you can't do that. He'd said it with other words. So we're always open to that, but certainly, scholarly nonfiction, there are some pretty set standard sizes. We not too long ago encountered, there is also a push to sometimes make something a little more gifty or approachable for people. And we certainly encountered a book that was too small. And we learned it as we were printing it again. And working with our two printers who both had to work on it, it got bigger. Its physical dimensions had to change because it was bouncing on the line. But literally, that's the kind of thing that we learned from that. And we always want to hear more of, what you're doing that nearly needs to change. Because everyone's open to figuring those things out. Some things, trim sizes for a series can't change. Paper has to hold as much as it can. But I think every publisher's like, you can save me some money, I'll find a way.
So is it, it's a yes or no question, but is it fair to say that given the cost pressures, that publishers in general are more receptive to standardization suggestions if they can save money? And it's different than it was a few years ago.
Yes. No, I think.
Yeah, I would say yes, but not at the expense of the quality of the publications, because you will pay for it in the long run. So short-term gain, long-term, a lot of pain. So, yeah.
I would say yes, but it does need to be collaborative. We did have a situation where from one print run to the next, the paper was changed on us without talking to us. We do need consistency project to project. So when we've selected something, I think the time to have this discussion obviously is in the planning stage. So a little more discussion between the rep and our team up front, we can help make those decisions and then be consistent run to run.
So we touched on our distribution came up earlier. Do you elaborate on how that's evolved, the distribution side of the business? And I'm not necessarily talking about Ingram distribution. It's mainly getting books from the printer, maybe to a warehouse, to the end consumer. How is that changing, and do you see changes coming along the line or down the pipe?
I definitely see it changing. I see more and more publishers coming together, whether it's they're forming their own distribution options together, or Big Five are offering more collaborative distribution options for multiple publishers coming together. I also see a lot more drop shipments. I mean, we do a lot more drop shipments. We do a lot more drop shipments from our printers. One way that could be made easier is on the tax exemption side. The state to state tax landscape, as you all know, has changed, resale, things like that. A lot of our customers are tax exempt. So there's a lot of those details in the process that I think as we get into more options for distribution and direct shipments, that we could work together to make that easier as well.
So for the almanac, because we're a dated product and everything has to be laid down on a specific date, like this year was August 27th, because of all the PR and promotion that accompanies every new issue. We're very clear with our printers what the deadlines are. So the best way to accomplish that is to have frequent conversations all the time about what your plans are. So you're not working just, 3 months ahead. You're working a whole year out and you're constantly having conversations. I'm so lucky we have a great sales rep in Kathy Murray from Lakeside, who lives pretty close to the almanac. Nobody lives close to us, but she does. And so we could have these conversations about how things are going, where we are, what we're seeing, what are the new things and initiatives. So we have product that has to ship to the Hopper warehouse because they have to have it there a month before the pub date. We have to ship it to our subscription people, CDS in Des Moines. We have to ship it to our warehouse for our own products in Dover, Delaware. So there are all these different things. What we have found is giving very clear instructions about the quality of the cartons, the timeliness, working with, one of our distribution partners, C.H. Robinson. We're able to accomplish what we need to, but it is pretty hair-raising for July and August, really. But once everything gets to its destinations and you see it actually at retail, it's a great feeling. So that's what it is.
And I would say it's definitely changing, and it seems like the consolidation we've all experienced in every other part of this business is happened there. And I mean, that could be unique because, again, in my time, we went from our own distribution center in Concord, Mass, to try literal building that entire operation with MIT and Yale down in Cumberland to now moving to Norton. So, that's a relatively small period to have that amount of shift. And each one of those models is entirely different in how it works. And how, again, when you go back to the how much did I spend versus how much did I earn, there's a whole new way of adding into that. And I think one of the things that you can see in organizations our size is very different voices and interests in that. And it gets, I think, I would imagine for you, a little tricky. But it's part of the math now.
Yeah. So, Sherin, did you?
I was going to say, Joe, that I think the most critical element for all of us now is our book distributors, because everything happens through them. Mm-hmm. So, once you get stuff that they're in charge of sending it, whether it's to Sam's Club or B&N or to Amazon, to the independents, they're in charge of doing that. So your book distributor becomes a very important partner in this whole thing.
Well, the sense I get from your comments for the last 20 minutes or so is that you go back 10, 15, certainly 20 years. And on the printer side, so much of the conversation was about unit cost. The focus was on unit cost. Today, it sounds like that's changed. It's much more of a cost of goods sold conversation. There's a balance sheet element that comes in that's different than it was a while ago. Is that fair?
Well, unit cost still is important.
I wasn't trying to get away from that.
But I would say that there's a lot more total cost conversations. So, for example, we did a series that we had 3 stories and we did them in English and Spanish. So we had 6 books. So our intention was to use one printer for consistency. That initial printer, their production schedule changed. They didn't let us know. We would have missed our pub dates. We had to switch printers. But in each case, both printers allowed us to run both jobs, get a multi-job discount. It's the same specs, basically same book with 2 different languages. I realize that's 2 jobs, but your setup is the same. You can run them, together and have some efficiencies, paper buying, et cetera. They pass that along. Also, they allowed us to gain jobs on the pallets to save on freight, because it's basically, very little increase for that truck, for those pallets to ship them all together versus incurring the initial cost again for the truck for each shipment. Those kinds of things we look for. We look for how could we put some jobs together here at the same press so that we can ship together, because it is a total cost. Freight has gone way up too. We really have to look at all of the increases together.
So to honor the election, it's fair to conclude that unit cost is irrelevant.
Are you making up facts now?
So we wanted to save some time for questions, but I have kind of two questions. Last question is, so you have a captive audience of book printers here. What would you like, what do they need to know about your business in order to be the best supplier they can possibly be to you? Good.
I would say I want you to make us better. I mean, it seems sort of weird, but I found in my time that the people who are curious about why something's happening, not just what's happening, were much easier to work with. And I've got to imagine that's true for you. And I've used this example before, but when we were purchasing paper, before Abby got us thankfully out of that business at the last second. But Marie used to come and see us twice a year. That might be the only time you visited from Lindenmeyer. But she always brought us these incredible details, literally down to what each mill was doing and what each machine on the floor of that mill was doing at that moment, which seems somewhat super in the weeds, even for people who are book production nerds. But it was so helpful for me in talking to my CFOs, to talking to my director, because it's a picture of a part of the industry that's obviously critical. It's a layer of detail that we need. And if we don't think we need it, you need to tell us we do, because that makes us better partners. And I do think, we've gotten to it here. Getting in front of some of these questions, I think we got better over time at asking about, hey, is this trim size going to work? But trying to be in front of those things. And it's sort of, so on the one hand, make us better at this. And on the other hand, just always, and this is obvious, tell us the truth. Tell us it's going to be late and why. Tell us it's big, and for the exact reasons. Again, we know, because I was explained to me the labor difficulties of getting good people on the plant floor. We suffered with you for it. But having that understanding, so again, that we can relay that to our partners on our side, is what makes all of the difference, makes us trust each other and work it out as we go. Like, we solve the problem together. And I think that's, again, pretty simple. And, that's what I think it is.
For me, for the almanac, for all of us, I think the most relevant thing about what printers should know now is communication is key. The good, the bad, and the ugly, whatever it is. I think talking to us, giving us options, having that conversation where you're coming from, where we're coming from, with the printers we deal with, understanding that the labor problems, the issues with paper and paper ordering. We buy all our book paper through Lakeside. I mean, it's just, we don't order paper and have it delivered like we do on the newsstand side. That was a really difficult time. And those conversations, because of the pressures of having to order 9 months in advance, for products you hadn't even sold, just so that you could get that. Those were hard times, but having that trust and having the conversations, and because of the relationship, we were able to get through that because we'd built up, all the years when things were good. So when things were hard, you had the conversations, and, we weren't always happy, and especially with the pricing. I think, we made it through that because of the strength of the relationship. It was about communication and trust between both parties, that we trust you to do what you need to, and we will go out and sell our products so we can increase our print orders year after year. I think the other thing is also, with the labor shortages, if people are doubling up on their jobs, let us know. It helps us to know, the pressures you're under as well, so we can figure out what we can do to communicate even clearer, make sure that everything is done so it's not too much of a burden on you. And we love going on press. We really do. It was hard during COVID when we couldn't go, because there's nothing like being on press and watching this incredible thing occur, all the content and your hopes and dreams and designs and story ideas. Finally, we send them in those files and just see the awesome pressman and the bindery and everything that happens. It's really a magical experience. I know people in the digital age can't appreciate that. And we do have one leg in digital and, of course, social media and almac.com. But there's nothing like ink on paper. The day I stop getting excited about seeing those forums, I'm leaving. That's it. I'm like, you have to. So those are some of the things I think. Our account execs, our salespeople, as I mentioned, Kathy Murray here today, they have helped us enormously. And, having those kind of relationships mean everything to us. And so we hope that we can continue this, keeping this legacy. No, we must continue keeping this legacy publication going. And so that many more million people will have access to these wonderful products that your industry really brings to the marketplace for us.
Well, I have to say for me, it's communication too. And we've talked a lot about communication on the front end and for specs, but imagine that if we missed our pre-press date, or if we gave you the wrong files, or, the chaos that we would cause for you, right? Just think about that. If you don't proactively communicate that you're going to be late, we just had a printer who was a month late, but they waited until we were expecting the books in the warehouse to let us know that. And obviously they knew that way before then because it hadn't been on press. Our customers are waiting for those books for events, or we have pub dates. We have, so it creates a chaos. And so if we can have the proactive communication, we realize things happen, but letting us know with enough time to have a backup plan and put it into place just makes it go that much smoother. And so I think just remembering that, we need to stay in business for you to stay in business. You need to stay in business for us to stay in business. And, if we really communicate throughout the whole process and try to understand the fallout for each other when things don't go as planned, that collaboration, that partnership can really help us thrive in our businesses together.
Good. Thank you. Matt has a microphone. Questions, comments? Anybody want to add anything that they heard?
How you doing? Just a comment and a question just for some fun. So the Farmer's Almanac, I got to tell you, I should know that. Old Farmer's Almanac. So I've been in printing for about 30 years on the manufacturing side. Worked at LSC at one point in my career, but I did go to college for meteorology. And I've been reading that since I'm a kid. And I got to tell you, it's one of my favorites every year. And I look forward to it. So I just want to say thank you. And my question is, I didn't buy it yet this year. Am I going to have snow this winter in New Jersey? Because I'm getting sick and tired of no snow.
Wrong. We have 18 regions. Where are you from?
I live in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Okay, we'll look at your section and I'll tell you. But New Jersey, dude.
Well, can you double check Florida? I don't need any more storms, please.
Just pause.
Yeah, there's one in the Gulf right now that my wife keeps telling me about. So, any other questions?
So I actually do have one last, hopefully a simple question, but it goes to communication. And, I don't think we'll ever return to the in-person sales calls, or the frequency of in-person sales calls that we had 5-6 years ago. But do you still see value there? And how can your print sales reps maximize the value of those meetings?
Those meetings. I really do. I think that face to face, obviously, that's why we're all here, right? I mean, it's completely different. But in the absence of that, we do have Zoom calls sometimes with our sales reps or CSRs, and I do find those valuable. I feel like it's much more personal, but also you get to ask questions that are easier to ask than going back and forth in email. Understanding how our business is different, what we mean by sturdy cartons, what we're doing with them. We can't have a situation where we have to open and put more packing in order to reship them, just those kind of things. I think a conversation just works so much better. Sometimes people ask me, well, how much is too much? I'd say if we have an existing relationship where it doesn't feel like it's a sales call and brand new, once a quarter isn't too much for me. At least a couple times a year. If it's a new printer, don't contact me in the summer. It's our busiest season with government buying. So just kind of be aware of our business model and when an off time would be to get to know your capabilities and let us know your capabilities first so I can kind of see where it might fit in. But for existing relationships, I mean, I just know that publishers, at least the ones that I've talked to, and for me, we miss it. I miss samples.
We love seeing our sales reps, and what we've tried to do also is make sure that people in the production department go to the printers and visit with the people there. And if our sales rep can be there as well at that time, we try to coordinate because it's important. Because now we're seeing what's happening on press with the sales rep, and it makes for a much better relationship. So we always encourage that as much as possible. And our sales rep also can always, give us more information than, okay, you can save this and that. But basically talking about the industry, what is happening, what are the things to look out for, what are the new innovations and stuff. So it's really important. Again, like Karen, I would ask, please. And between May and August is not a good time. Because of concurrently running so many products at different printers. And also for paper people, we buy our book product paper from our printer, but Mike Duffy's been our paper rep since the mid-'80s, and every year he schleps up to Dublin. And we sit there and go through the whole paper thing, and then I make him walk down to the general store, which is really mean because it's a 30% decline and then uphill. He's happy walking down, and back he's like, oh my God. But that's, we love seeing them. We love talking to people because that's the only way you can learn more.
You're retired.
Yeah, I'm free all the time. You all can call me whenever you want. But yeah, I'd agree. Getting people on press is, for someone who does book production, not only critical, but certainly changes your perspective. Seeing a paper mill is amazing. I was really spoiled. I came to Harvard and we had 2 different component printers who visited us every day. So we were used to a real high level of attention. It always helps. And I think you're unfortunately right. It has to be both now. And I experienced during the pandemic CSRs and sales reps who were very good at using Zoom for what it could do. And that can be extremely effective, especially because I'm in my house and I can be like holding up a book and like, can you do this? So I think being able to take advantage of both, even though it sucks, it works and it will help you and it will help us. So just working with each person to find what they're comfortable with and what they need. You shouldn't, because you can't go in person, you shouldn't ignore the possibility that they still want to see you in another way.
So, well, thank you for that. And I think just to wrap up, there's a lot of what you said revolves around communication. And I mean, this whole purpose of this meeting is communication. And I think from the sales side, the printer side of the table, we're still trying to figure out how to communicate with you, how to affect, what bugs you, what doesn't bug you. For many years, we knew the in-person visit routine, but now we have email, we have phone, we have video chat, and we have in-person, and to some extent, we have text, depending on the relationship. So my plea to the publishing community is tell us, communicate with us. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is my busy season. This is not, I think we need to hear that because it's changed and we're trying to figure it out too. So thank you. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
What? The guy from New Jersey?
Yeah.
The gentleman from New Jersey who asked about the winter. Here's your book.
Yeah.
Come and get it.
So thank you very much.